The Galactic Council chamber stretched wider than most human cities. 300 species had representatives here, each sitting in pods designed for their unique biology. Some breathed methane, others floated in liquid tanks, and a few existed as pure energy contained in crystalline matrices. The chamber represented 10,000 years of peace, or so the official histories claimed. Ambassador Marcus Blake sat in the human delegation pod, his dark suit pressed perfectly despite the long session. He was 48 years old, with gray threading through his black hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of too many late nights reading reports. For 12 years he had represented Earth in this chamber, always careful, always diplomatic, always playing by the rules that kept humanity's seat at this table. The current debate had droned on for 6 hours. The topic was trade routes through the secondary arm, a discussion so technical and dry that Marcus had watched several delegates drift into sleep cycles. He checked his datapad for the third time that hour, scanning updates from Earth and the various human colonies scattered across 4 systems. A priority alert flashed across his screen. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he read the header. The message came from Intelligence Director Catherine Morris on Earth, marked urgent and eyes only. He tapped it open, keeping his face neutral as years of diplomatic training kicked in. The report contained video files, survivor testimonies, and satellite imagery. Marcus forced himself to watch even as his hands began to shake. The Vishan homeworld of Kalara had been beautiful once. He had visited it himself 3 years ago during a cultural exchange. Rolling fields of golden crops, cities built into living trees, millions of Vishan families living peaceful lives focused on art and agriculture. The footage showed those same cities burning. The Vishan were a gentle species, standing barely 4 feet tall, with smooth blue skin and large eyes that seemed to hold endless kindness. They had no military, no weapons, no defense fleet. They had trusted in the Council's protection, in the laws that were supposed to keep them safe. The Kelrathi Empire had not cared about those laws. Marcus watched Kelrathi soldiers, massive reptilian warriors bred for war, hunting Vishan families through the streets. He watched orbital bombardment turn farms into craters. He watched transport ships carrying survivors into space, only to be destroyed before they could escape the system. 4 billion people had lived on Kalara and its 13 colony worlds 2 months ago. Intelligence estimated fewer than 10 million remained, scattered and hiding. The video file ended. Marcus sat in silence, his jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. Around him, the debate about trade routes continued. No one else knew yet. No one else had seen what he had just witnessed. He looked up at the Karathi delegation pod, positioned in the upper tiers of the chamber. Ambassador Throkar lounged there, his massive frame draped across a resting platform. The Kelrathi stood 9 feet tall on average, with armored scales and claws that could tear through steel. Their empire controlled 40 systems through military might, and they made no secret of their belief that strength determined rights. Throkar caught Marcus looking and showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. The gesture made Marcus's blood run cold. The council session finally ended. Marcus returned to the human embassy, a modest building compared to the massive structures maintained by older, wealthier species. His staff met him in the conference room, their faces telling them they had received the same intelligence report. "How bad?" asked Helen Carter, his chief of staff. She was 35, brilliant, and had worked beside Marcus for 6 years. "Genocide," Marcus said quietly. "Complete and systematic. They're hunting the survivors." His deputy, Nathan Cross, pulled up holographic displays showing what little data they had. The Kelrathi hit all 14 Vishan worlds simultaneously. They jammed communications, destroyed orbital defenses, and landed ground forces. It was coordinated, planned, and executed with military precision. "Why?" Helen asked. The Vishan had nothing the Kelrathi wanted. No resources, no strategic value, no territory worth taking. "That's what makes it genocide instead of conquest," Marcus replied. "They're not taking the worlds. They're just killing everyone on them. We're picking up survivor signals from the outer colonies, small groups hiding in wilderness areas, underground bunkers, anywhere they could reach. The Kelrathi are hunting them methodically. They're treating it like sport." Marcus felt something shift inside him, something he had kept carefully buried during his years of diplomatic service. He had studied history, Earth's history, the darkest chapters that humanity tried never to forget. His own great-grandfather had survived the genocides of the 20th century, had escaped with memories that haunted him until his death. Humanity knew what this was. They had done it to themselves, learned from it, sworn never again. "Call an emergency council session," Marcus ordered. "We're putting this on the record tonight." The emergency session convened at midnight, Council Standard Time. Marcus presented the evidence, the videos, the testimony from Vishan survivors that human intelligence had managed to contact. He spoke calmly, laying out facts without emotion, letting the horror speak for itself. The council chamber erupted in discussion.
Some species expressed outrage.
Others questioned the intelligence sources. A few suggested waiting for official confirmation through proper channels. Thorokar rose to speak, his voice booming through the translation systems. The internal affairs of the Kalrathi Empire are not subject to council oversight. The Vishan worlds existed within our sphere of influence. What we do in our own territory is our concern alone. They were council members, Marcus shot back. Protected under the charter. They were weak, Thorokar replied. Weakness invites exploitation. This is the way of nature, the way of reality. You soft species hide behind your laws and protocols, but reality does not change. The strong survive. The weak perish. Marcus stood, looking up at the massive Kalrathi. Then you admit to genocide. I admit to nothing that requires admission. We acted in our interests. If the council disapproves, let them vote sanctions. Throker's laugh echoed through the chamber. We all know how long council votes take. The session dissolved into procedural debates. Committees were proposed to investigate, study groups to verify evidence, diplomatic channels to express concern. Marcus watched the council debate for another 3 hours before he walked out. The protocols, the procedures, the careful language that said everything while meaning nothing. He had seen this before, watched the council take years to decide on matters that required immediate action. By the time they finished forming committees, every last Vishan would be dead. He returned to his office and opened a secure channel to Earth. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to General Lisa Garrett, commander of Earth Defense Command. She was 52, with steel-gray haircut, military short, and eyes that had seen too much combat in humanity's early colonial wars. I watched the session, Lisa said without preamble. The council's gonna let this happen. They need time to verify, time to debate, time to follow proper channels, Marcus replied, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. Time the Vishan don't have. I need to know something, Marcus. Are we really going to sit here and watch this happen? Again? Marcus understood what she meant. Earth's history was filled with moments when the world had watched genocide unfold and done nothing. Rwanda, Cambodia, the Holocaust, Armenia, dozens more stretching back through the centuries. Every time, afterward, people had said never again. Every time it had happened again? No, Marcus said firmly. Not this time. Prepare the fleet. Lisa nodded once and ended the call. Marcus knew what he had just set in motion. He also knew he would answer for it, possibly with his career, possibly with worse. But some things mattered more than careers. On Earth, Lisa walked through the corridors of Defense Command buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The facility had been built 50 years ago when humanity first encountered alien life, designed to coordinate the defense of Earth and its colonies. The walls were lined with screens showing the positions of human ships, defense stations, and military installations across 4-star systems. She entered the war room where 20 officers waited around a holographic display of known space. These were people she had handpicked over the years, men and women who understood that sometimes the right thing and the legal thing were not the same. The Vishan situation? Asked Colonel Danny Rodriguez, head of intelligence. He was 38, quick-minded, and had a talent for seeing patterns others missed. It's genocide, Lisa confirmed. The council is going to debate while people die. We're not waiting. She pulled up the intelligence files, letting her officers see what the Karathi had done. The room fell silent as the videos played. Lisa watched their faces harden, saw the same anger she felt reflected in their eyes. We've been preparing for this, she said quietly. We knew eventually we would face a situation where the council's rules and human morality would conflict. That day is here. Commander Patricia Vale, head of fleet operations, studied the tactical displays. The Kalrathi have numerical superiority. Their empire fields 3,000 warships. We have 400. But we have advantages they don't know about, Danny interjected. He pulled up classified files showing weapon systems and tactical doctrines humanity had developed in secret. While Earth played the peaceful junior member of the Council, we studied warfare. Real warfare, not the formalized combat most species practice. Lisa had overseen those projects herself. Humanity had joined the galactic community with recent memories of world wars, insurgencies, and conflicts that had pushed military science to terrible heights. They had observed how other species fought, Notice the limitations, the rules they followed even in war. We need authorization, Patricia said. This isn't a defense action. This is intervention in another empire's territory. I'm working on that, Lisa replied. 3 hours later, she stood before the Human Council of Nations in Geneva. The council chamber was modest compared to the galactic version, just 50 representatives from Earth's unified government and major colony worlds. Chancellor Kevin Hayes presided, a thoughtful man of 60 who had spent his career trying to build Earth's reputation as a responsible galactic citizen. Lisa presented the evidence, holding nothing back. She showed them what the Kalrathi had done, what they were still doing. She showed them the council's response, the endless debates and procedural delays. We have the capability to stop this, she concluded. The question is whether we have the will. The debate that followed was intense. Some representatives argued for following council procedures, maintaining Earth's carefully built reputation. Others demanded immediate action. The chamber divided along familiar lines, idealists versus realists, those who believed in systems versus those who believed in results. Then Danny Rodriguez stepped forward with new intelligence. The Kalrathi have identified their next targets, he announced, pulling up star maps. 3 more species within the year, the Pelori, the Santa, and the Win. Combined population of 9 billion. All peaceful species with minimal defenses. All within Kalrathi territory where council law is weakest. The chamber erupted. The Pelori were known for their music, the Santa for their poetry, the Win for their philosophy. All had contributed to galactic culture. All were now marked for extermination. Chancellor Hayes called for order. When the chamber quieted, he spoke carefully. I came into politics believing that civilization, law, and diplomacy could solve any problem. I still want to believe that. But I also learned history. I know what happens when good people follow rules while evil people break them. He paused, looking at each representative. My grandmother survived ethnic cleansing in the Balkans. She told me something I never forgot. She said the people who saved her didn't ask permission first. They just came and pulled her out of hell. She said sometimes civilization fails, and when it does, you need people willing to be uncivilized enough to fight back. Earth would intervene. That night, a refugee ship appeared at Earth's orbital station. It carried 3,000 Vishan survivors, families who had escaped the slaughter and fled across space in a damaged freighter. Human medical teams rushed aboard, finding people traumatized, injured, some barely alive. A young Vishan girl named Talara sat in the medical bay wrapped in a thermal blanket. She was maybe 10 years old by human standards, her blue skin pale from malnutrition and her large eyes hollow with shock. Sophie Bennett knelt beside her, speaking softly, trying to get her to eat something. Where are your parents? Sophie asked gently. Talara stared at the floor. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. The soldiers came to our farm. Papa told me to hide in the grain storage. I heard Mama screaming. Then it was quiet. I waited 3 days before I came out. They were gone. Everyone was gone. Sophie held the child as she cried, feeling rage build in her chest. She had treated trauma victims before, survivors of accidents and natural disasters. This was different. This was deliberate cruelty, systematic evil. The stories from other survivors were similar. Families torn apart, children orphaned, entire communities destroyed for no reason except that the Kalrathi could. One elderly Vishan man described watching his grandchildren shot while trying to board an evacuation ship. A young mother held an infant who would never know its father, killed while buying time for his family to escape. Chancellor Hayes visited the station personally. He walked through the medical bays, listening to the survivors, seeing their faces. When Talara showed him a holographic picture of her parents, something broke inside him. I'm sorry we didn't come sooner, he told her. Will you stop them? She asked. Will you save the others? Hayes knelt down to her level. Yes, I promise you we will. 2 days later, Marcus Blake returned to the Galactic Council chamber. He carried a formal datapad containing Earth's official statement. The chamber was packed, word having spread that humanity planned some kind of announcement. Delegates whispered among themselves, speculating about what the young species might do. Marcus walked to the speaker's platform, his movements calm and controlled. He had not slept in 48 hours, running on stimulants and determination. The human delegation presents evidence of genocide committed by the Kalrathi Empire against the Vishan people, he began, his voice echoing through the chamber. He uploaded files to the central display showing everything Earth had documented. The massacres, the hunting parties, the deliberate destruction of a peaceful species. We call upon this council to take immediate action. We demand the surrender of Kelrothi leadership to face justice. We demand immediate cessation of all military operations against Vishan survivors. We demand council forces be deployed to protect the remaining population. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Marcus waited, knowing what was coming. The council speaker, an ancient being called Morath from a species so old they remembered when the council was founded, raised a manipulator appendage for silence. The human delegation's concerns are noted. The proper procedure is to form an investigative committee, which will report findings within the standard time frame of 18 months. Following that report, sanctions may be discussed. 18 months, Marcus repeated. In 18 months, the Vishan will be extinct. We must follow established protocols, Morath replied. The council has maintained peace for 10,000 years through careful adherence to law. Throkar rose in his delegation pod, his massive form radiating contempt. The human speaks of things that do not concern him. Earth is a newcomer here, barely 50 years among the civilized. You know nothing of how the galaxy truly works. Strength prevails, weakness perishes. This is natural law. Marcus looked up at the Karathi ambassador. We know more about that than you think. Earth has a long history of strong people destroying weak people. We also learned what happens after. We learned what it costs. We learned what it makes you. Be empty words from a soft species. Throkar laughed. You humans play at civilization, but you have no stomach for reality. You hide behind the council's protection while pretending to moral superiority. Marcus felt calm settle over him, the kind of calm that came before irrevocable decisions. Humanity gives the Galactic Council 72 hours to take meaningful action against the Karathi Empire. Meaningful action means military intervention to protect Vishan survivors and arrest of those responsible for genocide. The chamber erupted in shock. Several delegates began speaking at once, their translation systems creating chaos. You cannot issue ultimatums to the council, Morath said, his ancient voice carrying disapproval. This is not how civilized species behave. Then perhaps we're done being civilized, Marcus replied. 72 hours. After that, Earth acts alone. Throkar's laughter boomed through the chamber. You threaten us? Your tiny fleet against the Kalarathi Empire? You are fools. If you enter our territory, you will be destroyed. Consider this your only warning. Marcus met the Kalrathi's eyes without flinching. Consider ours delivered as well. His staff followed, their faces showing a mix of fear and determination. As they reached the embassy, Helen pulled him aside. That was a declaration of war, Marcus. You know that, right? It was a declaration that we won't stand by and watch genocide, Marcus corrected. If that means war, so be it. Over the next 3 days, delegates from various species contacted the human embassy privately. Some were supportive, thanking Marcus for taking a stand even if their own governments could not. The Xenothari ambassador, representing an ancient, peaceful civilization, visited in person. What you are doing is brave, the elderly Xenothari said, also foolish. The Karathi are powerful, and the council will not support you. You will stand alone. We've stood alone before, Marcus replied. Sometimes it's the only way to do the right thing. I wish we had your courage. But my people learned long ago that survival requires patience and diplomacy. We cannot help you. We're not asking for help. We're just asking you to remember what happened here when it's over. The 72 hours passed with the Galactic Council and endless debate. Committees were formed, procedures were discussed, and protocols were cited. No action was taken. No help was sent to the dying Vishan survivors. At Defense Command on Earth, Lisa Garrett watched the countdown reach 0. She stood in the war room surrounded by her officers, all of them aware they were about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. She opened a channel to Admiral Craig Peterson, who waited with the human fleet at a staging point just outside Kalrathi territory. The Council has made its choice, Lisa said. Proceed with the operation. Craig was 60 years old, a veteran of the colonial conflicts that had nearly torn apart human settlements 20 years ago. He had gray hair, weathered features, and eyes that had seen friends die in battles nobody remembered. He commanded from the bridge of the battleship Valiant, humanity's largest warship. All ships, this is Admiral Peterson. We have authorization. Execute jump sequence on my mark. Around him, 400 human warships powered up their slipspace drives. The fleet had been positioned carefully, every ship crew ready, every weapon system checked and rechecked. They carried Marines, assault shuttles, and weapons most of the galaxy had never seen. Craig looked at the star map showing Kelrathi territory. Their target was Dracor Station, the primary military command center for the Kelarathi Eastern fleets. Intelligence reports put 3,000 warships under its control, with at least 600 stationed at the base itself. All ships jump now! Space tore open as the human fleet entered slip space. For 30 seconds they traveled through the dimension between dimensions, moving faster than light. Then they emerged exactly where they intended, 500 kilometers from Dracor Station. The Kelarathi sensors immediately detected them. Alarms blared throughout the massive station, a structure 10 kilometers across, bristling with weapons and shielded by the most advanced technology the Empire possessed. Craig opened a broad-spectrum channel broadcasting on every frequency. Attention, Kelarathi forces. This is Admiral Craig Peterson of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are hereby ordered to surrender all personnel involved in the genocide of the Vishan people. You will cease all military operations against Vishan survivors immediately. You have 1 hour to comply. On Dracor Station, Commander Throkar sat in the central command chamber. He was Throkar, the ambassador's cousin, equally massive and equally arrogant. He looked at the tactical display showing the human fleet and laughed. 400 ships against our 600 here, with 3,000 more within range. These humans are insane. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, destroy the human vessels, leave no survivors. Teach these primitives the price of threatening the Karathi Empire. The Kelarathi fleet moved to attack formation, their massive warships built like flying fortresses. They had been designed for the traditional galactic warfare, battles fought at long range with energy weapons and guided missiles, conflicts that followed understood rules about targeting and engagement. The humans had studied those rules carefully, then they had thrown them away. Craig watched the Karathi fleet advance. All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha. Fire at will. The human fleet scattered into dozens of smaller groups, moving in patterns that confused Kalathri targeting systems. Instead of the expected exchange of long-range fire, human ships accelerated to speeds that pushed their crews to the limits of their acceleration couches. The first Kelarathi battleship died when 3 human destroyers appeared above it, having used the station itself as cover. They unleashed kinetic weapons. Solid metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds. The projectiles punched through the Karathi shields designed to stop energy weapons and tore the ship apart from the inside. What are they firing? A Karathi captain screamed as his shields failed to stop the assault. Throughout the battle space, human ships attacked with weapons the Karathi had not anticipated. Electronic warfare systems jammed communications and sensors. Missiles that maneuvered in ways that violated every tactical doctrine. Fighter craft that flew in suicidal patterns, delivering weapons at point-blank range before dodging away. One human cruiser, the Boston, took heavy fire from a Kelarathi dreadnought. Its captain, Commander Rachel Foster, ordered emergency power to engines. The Boston accelerated directly at the larger ship, launching every missile it carried. At the last second, it veered away while the missiles continued forward. The Kelarathi captain expected them to detonate against his shields. Instead, they punched through and exploded inside his ship's hull. Craig coordinated the chaos from the Valiant, watching his tactical display show Kelarathi ships falling out of formation. Humanity had spent 50 years watching galactic warfare, studying how other species fought. They fought with honor, with understood rules, with protocols about proper engagement ranges, and acceptable tactics. Humans had learned warfare in the mud and blood of Earth's world wars. They knew how to fight dirty. Dracor Station is launching fighters, his tactical officer reported. 2,000 craft inbound. Deploy our interceptors, Craig ordered, and get me firing solutions on that station. The Kelarathi pilots flew with practiced skill, executing textbook maneuvers. The human pilots flew like they were insane, using tactics that risked their own lives to ensure kills. They rammed when necessary, sacrificed themselves to protect bombers, and fought with a desperation born from knowing what the Kelarathi had done to the Vishan. 40 minutes into the battle, the Kelarathi fleet was in full retreat. Half their ships had been destroyed or disabled. Dracor Station's shields were failing under sustained bombardment from human heavy weapons. Commander Throkar stared at his displays in disbelief. Impossible. They're primitives. They've been in space barely a century. His tactical officer's voice shook. Sir, they're not fighting like anyone we've ever faced. They're using weapons and tactics that violate every standard engagement protocol. Then we'll teach them about protocols, Throkar snarled. He opened a channel to his remaining ships. All vessels, target their medical ships and support craft. Hit them where it hurts. The Kelarathi targeting shift lasted exactly 90 seconds before Craig responded. 3 human battleships broke formation and poured fire directly into Throkar's command ship, not bothering with tactics or maneuvers. They simply hammered the vessel with every weapon they had until its shields collapsed and its hull cracked open like an egg. "Boarding teams, go," Craig ordered. Assault shuttles launched from the human carriers, racing through the debris field toward the crippled command ship. Marines in combat armor breached the hull, fighting through Kelarathi defenders with brutal efficiency. They had one objective: capture Throkar alive. Lieutenant Jake Morrison led his squad through the smoking corridors of the Kelarathi ship. The Kelarathi soldiers were larger, stronger, and had natural weapons in their claws and teeth, but the humans fought with a focused intensity that caught the reptilian warriors off guard. Jake's squad used grenades in tight spaces, exploited their smaller size to move through areas the Kelarathi couldn't follow, and showed no hesitation. They found Throkar in the command center, surrounded by his remaining guards. The Kelarathi commander roared defiance, calling the humans cowards and weaklings. Jake shot the guards with precision fire, then his team swarmed Throkar, using shock weapons to bring down the massive warrior. "Package secured," Jake reported. "He's alive and very angry. Time to show the galaxy what justice looks like." Within an hour, the battle was over. Draker Station surrendered after its shields failed completely. The surviving Kelarathi ships fled into slipspace, abandoning their command structure. Human losses stood at 43 ships destroyed and 12,000 personnel killed or wounded. The Kelarathi had lost 400 ships and Drakor Station itself, but the operation was only half complete. While the main fleet engaged at Drakor, smaller human task forces hit targets across Kelarathi territory. Special forces teams dropped onto 4 worlds, where Vishan survivors were hiding from hunting parties. The teams moved fast, using intelligence provided by Vishan refugees to locate the hidden groups. On the colony world of Resh, Captain Emma Lewis led her platoon through a dense forest where 200 Vishan families hid in caves. Kelarathi hunters were closing in, having tracked their prey for weeks. Emma's team arrived 12 hours before the hunters would have found them. "We're from Earth," Emma told the frightened Vishan in their language, which human linguists had learned from the refugees. "We're here to take you home." The Vishans stared at these alien soldiers who had come across the stars to save them. Some wept. Others could barely believe it was real. Emma's team set up a defensive perimeter while transport ships landed to evacuate the survivors. When the Kelarathi hunters arrived, they found human Marines waiting. The fight was short and brutal. The hunters had been tracking unarmed civilians. They were not prepared for trained soldiers who fought back. Similar scenes played out on 3 other worlds. By the time the sun rose on each planet, thousands more Vishan survivors were safe aboard human ships, heading toward Earth's protection. The Galactic Council watched everything. Humanity broadcast the entire operation, showing the battles, the rescues, the captured Kelarathi leaders. They showed the Vishan children being carried to safety by human soldiers. They showed the mass graves the Kelarathi had tried to hide. Marcus Blake stood before the council once more, his uniform crisp despite not having slept in 3 days. The chamber was silent as he spoke. Humanity requested council action. The council debated. While you followed your protocols, the Kelarathi continued their genocide, so we stopped them. We did not ask permission because we already knew what your answer would be. Morath, the ancient council speaker, radiated displeasure. You violated Kelarathi sovereignty. You attacked without council authorization. You have broken fundamental laws that maintain galactic peace. We stopped a genocide, Marcus replied flatly. If your laws prevent that, then your laws are worthless. Humanity is done asking permission to stop monsters. The chamber erupted in argument. Some species applauded Earth's actions. Others condemned the violation of council procedures. A few remained silent, perhaps thinking about their own security and whether the council would protect them when threatened. Marcus waited for the noise to die down. 47 Kelarathi leaders are now in human custody, including Commander Throkar and Ambassador Throkar. They will stand trial for genocide. Any species that wishes to participate in the tribunal is welcome. The trial will be held on Earth, and the Vishan survivors will testify. You cannot hold trials outside council jurisdiction, Morath protested. Watch us, Marcus said. He uploaded another file to the central display. 23 species have contacted Earth privately in the last 72 hours. They have requested mutual defense agreements, protection pacts, and military cooperation. They no longer trust the Council to protect them. The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. The Council's authority rested on its member species, believing it could keep them safe. If that belief failed, the entire structure would collapse, Marcus continued. The Vishan people have formally requested to become Earth's protectorate. We have accepted. We will rebuild their worlds, protect their survivors, and ensure this never happens to them again. Any species that threatens them will answer to humanity. Over the following weeks, the trial proceeded on Earth. Throker and the other Kalarathi leaders faced a tribunal composed of human judges and representatives from species willing to participate, the Vishan survivors testified, describing what had been done to them. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Talara, the young girl who had lost her parents, stood before the tribunal. She looked at Throkar, the massive warrior who seemed so much smaller now in chains. "You killed my family because you could," she said, her voice steady despite her tears. "You thought being strong meant hurting the weak. These humans showed me that real strength is protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Throkar was found guilty, along with the other defendants. The sentences were severe, designed to send a message across the galaxy. The Kalrathi Empire, leaderless and shattered, fragmented as occupied species rebelled and broke free.